Hi, I'm Dave Gering, and welcome to my theater in the basement of my house. This is where the Waunakee community group meets every Wednesday nights, and we pack 18 people in here, and it's really fun. And today I get a chance to tell you about a story in my life where God's faithfulness became really important. My entire life changed, and so my view of God also changed a bit with it. And so let me tell you about it for a little bit. So I was out playing with my boys on the golf course behind my house. There's a whole bunch of ponds, which is where all my balls go when I do try to golf in the summer. But in the winter, it's a great place to play. And so the ponds were frozen, and I was pulling my boys on the sled, which means I was running, which is not a good thing to do on ice. And I fell, hit my head so hard on the ice, I thought, sure, my face bones were all broken. So I came back into my house and looked in the mirror and felt my bones, and they were okay. So I told my wife I'm okay. And she's like, no, you're not. Go look at your eyes. And so I went back to the mirror, and my eyes looked so tired, it looked like I hadn't slept in a week. And I went to the living room carpet, and I laid on the floor, and I took a nap for 80 minutes. And 4 hours later, I did the same thing. For the next 4 years, I took 2 of those 80-minute naps every day. And 3 months passed, and I wasn't any better at all. And I couldn't do most of the things that I needed to do. I had to drop out of volunteering for the Waunakee community group. I couldn't do my work. So let me tell you about things I couldn't do and why this was weird. Everything caused me a headache. Everything. And I had 4 different kinds of headaches. I named them. There was a snowflake headache. Okay, so I couldn't look outside and watch it snow, or I would get a really sharp pain right here, because your brain tracks all the snowflakes, and it's just too much work. So think about this. If a snowflake were to actually, instead of falling straight down, draw your name in the sky, would you notice it? Of course you would. Because your brain is tracking every single snowflake, even though there's a million of them, and that's how you would notice it. So things that seem really easy to us became really, really hard for me and painful for me. I couldn't look at a computer screen for more than 30 minutes, or the pain got too great, I couldn't take it anymore. And it took a 20-minute break to recover. So this is how I did my job. I couldn't go to the office, which this is before the pandemic when everyone was expected to go to the office. I had to stay home. I had to take these 30-minute on, 20-minute off breaks. So I could only work 5.5 hours a day. And I was at a startup where I actually worked 55 hours a week before the injury, which is bad. I needed to get out of that, and so this forced me out of that. But when I could only work 30 hours a week, they had to cut my pay. And so that hurts. But God provided financially, because a Christian life insurance salesman had sold me a disability policy. And so my disability insurance kicked in, and it covered that income gap. So that was really great. Lots of things, though, couldn't be covered. For example, I completely couldn't handle bright lights or sounds. Church was overwhelming. If I go into the east side for worship, there's this booming bass in there, and I just have to leave. My brain hurts too much. So if you see me in church today, you probably see me like this. So I'm wearing glasses. And these glasses are special. They cut out 90% of blue light, because blue light drives me nuts. And then I wear a hat so that this brim keeps the ceiling lights out of my eyes. And then I wear fancy-dancy Sony noise-canceling headphones so I can hear the voices of people at church, but I can't hear all those loud instruments. So you're probably going to see me like this. And that's why. This helps me cope. We had to come up with lots of coping mechanisms. If you look at these glasses, there's tape on the inside, so my brain doesn't have to work to blend the left and right images together. I just don't have to do that. I get to skip that step. I can't drive. I still can't drive. So when I'm in the car at highway speed, I put on this bandana. Tie this bad boy on so that I can still see around inside the car. I can talk to my kids. We can play a game. But I can't see out the windows. I can't see the scenery passing by. Or that would give me a headache. So that's how things currently are. But let me tell you about how things changed with God. So I went to physical therapy for 3 years, did lots of exercises I did every day for my brain, and my recovery was really, really slow. And the neurologist told me that 95% of healing happens in the first 18 months. And when I got to 18 months, the longest I'd ever been awake was 4.5 hours. I was not getting better. And I share that because that's key to understanding God's role in my recovery, because they told me, we actually asked him, are we ever going to reach a point where my recovery, will I get over the hill and things will just really get better and my recovery will accelerate? And he said, no, that never happens. But about 3 years in, that's exactly what happened to me. So a new neuroradiologist moved to Madison, and I went to see him, and he was wonderful. He got me into something called vision therapy. I changed my job. So I used to program computers all day long. And when you program a computer, it's not like you're reading an email line by line, but your eyes go all over the screen all the time. And that just wore out my brain. I couldn't do that. So I switched to a new job where I'm the leader now of the people who stare at the screen, making their eyes go everywhere. And that really helped. And then the vision therapy exercises just suddenly started to become really, really easy. I went from going nowhere for about a year of doing vision therapy to just doing awesome every single week. And eventually I graduated. I'm all done with vision therapy. I got the tape taken off my glasses. And a year ago, Ben asked me if I knew anyone who could volunteer to help with middle school ministry. And I looked at my wife and we thought, I think I'm actually well enough. And so we did it. I mean, it was the first time in 5 years that I could get through a 2-hour discussion with a bunch of people. We noticed this because I was in community group with adults. And after half an hour, I'd have to step outside and take a break. But I kind of only reached the point where I could get through the 2 hours with them. And so as soon as I could do that, I came back to something I loved, right? Middle school ministry. And so when you're away, you realize, what's really important. What do you really love, and what did you really miss? And so the perspective helps. And you may notice when life changes you that, things you notice in the Bible are different too. There's a reason we don't just read the Bible once in high school and then we're done for life, because you change and then your perspective changes. So I'm going to read for you a verse that caught my attention. It's going to surprise you, right? No one ever talks about this verse before. But when Jesus was prepared to be taken to the cross, the Roman soldiers, I'll just read it for you from the book of Matthew, chapter 27. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand, and they knelt in front of him, and they mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. You probably heard about that part before, right? But here's the next part that really struck me. They spit on him, and they took the staff, and they struck him on the head again and again. I read that, and I just think Jesus probably went to the cross with a concussion. So he knows what I went through. He knows what my head felt like. And I went through a lot of suffering for a lot of years, but he went through it first. And so that just really resonated with me. Some things are going to be different probably forever. And yet, I think my appreciation of the fact that God carried me, I reached a point where the doctor said I'm hopeless. And it's after that, right, that my recovery took off and I could go back to doing things that I love. And so for that, I just thank God.